Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you. On this video I'm going to be talking about the Night Manager Season 2 Episode 1. Full spoilers from the start of this review. And yeah, the Night Manager is back after almost a decade away. That's pretty insane news. That came out last year. So this was originally a limited series. It was based on the John le Carré novel. It kind of is the series, I think, in some ways that probably made Tom Hiddleston the star, as he became the spy of the show, who worked as a night manager initially before getting tangled up in this spy plot, Jonathan Pine. Because I think this was a bit before the Marvel Cinematic Universe came calling, and that original series also starred Hugh Laurie as like the main villain of the piece, who Pine was sent undercover to survey and try and infiltrate and get some dirt on him, and there was a whole back and forth between them throughout that series. So based on the John le Carré novel, and originally people just thought it was a limited series, and it got a lot of critical praise. It got award nominations. You had a very lavish location, very good cast, and you know, really for a spy show, a very suspenseful, well done spy show. So lots of plaudits. And I have watched it at least 2 or 3 times now, and I will confirm, because I'm not always the biggest spy guy, but I did think the original series of The Night Manager was excellent, and it does make for a very good rewatch as well. I think they cast it very well. So there was always going to be a bit of trepidation for this comeback show, and funnily enough, they've commissioned a third series as well, which I'm assuming will come out next year. I'm guessing maybe they did the second and third series quite close together, and having seen this opening episode to the new series, it feels a little bit than they're continuing the saga from the original series, and that maybe they might just continue it through, like sort of thread the needle, and it's kind of like, okay, by the time you get to the end of series 3, that'll be the complete story now, and they're really going to build on it, because there is a lot of referencing to the original story and show in this episode. In fact, I would say like almost like the ghost of Richard Roper, who was the Hugh Laurie character, sort of hangs over it in many ways, and I think that's definitely intentional, because the character and what happened still haunts the Jonathan Pine character, the Tom Hiddleston character, but it's also, when you watch it, because Hugh Laurie was just so perfect in that role, it was sort of in a way like a coming out role for him, just in the sense of like a more dramatic, exciting role where he got to play someone a little bit more dangerous rather than the usual sort of comedic roles he tends to play. And the trick was he could still bring a lot of his charisma and comic chops to this very like shady, rich guy who was like the head villain. But he was a fantastic villain for that show, and he was a great sparring partner for the Tom Hiddleston character. I think their back and forth is why it works so well. So it's sort of funny then, even though he's no longer around in the story, spoiler, he was killed off at the end of the original series, he still looms very large in this show, in the follow-up season, and where it's come, and the direction it's going to take. So there is an awful lot going on in this opening episode, so maybe in some ways I should just run through the plot. And there's a lot of characters. So Hiddleston is back as Jonathan Pine. It's said in the promotion that Olivia Colman was back, because she was like his main point of contact in the original show, and she's back in a flashback, so that's like a very brief scene at the start of the episode. So the episode opens with a flashback in like 2019, which is 4 years after Roper's death. And Jonathan reunites with the Angela Barr character, who's played by Coleman. And it's in Syria, where the original series ended. And he has to identify, or they both have to identify Roper's body. And Barr also gives Pine like a new passport, a new identity, so he can move on. But what's funny is, after that scene, you don't see her again. She gets mentioned later on in the episode, like Pine wants to contact her about the mission, but he's told by his other superior from the original series, Rex, that she's gone into retirement. So I don't know if that's just a small complaint where they've been a bit clever with the marketing, like just to drop Olivia Colman's name in, and then she's only going to make a brief cameo, because that is literally it. That is the one scene for her in this episode, and then she's told, or Jonathan's told later on, then she's gone into retirement to leave her out of this. Now, it's possible they might still get her back for a bit more, like the odd scene here or there. You know, maybe the promotion wasn't fake, like maybe she is going to have a bigger role, but Olivia Colman, obviously big Hollywood actress now, like in big demand. So I'm guessing maybe they struggled to get her back for too much. Maybe they're going to work around her schedule and just have her here and there for little bits. It would be nice to have her a little bit anyway, because she was a great character in that original series. Like, she really brought a lot of personality, and that may be where this new show suffers the most, is barring one or two reappearances, because as I said, at the moment Olivia Colman only had a brief cameo. Rex is obviously back, but you know, you may be struggling. Like, that original series had a lot of star power and had a lot of quality in the casting, and there's definitely a solid cast in this one, and Tom Hiddleston is back obviously and seems quite game. I think he's very good in this episode. It's a little bit of a different Tom Hiddleston than was in the show like 14 years ago, and this episode definitely, with his Pine character, takes on a bit more of like a somber type tone. But it'll be interesting without such a good sparring partner as like Hugh Laurie was. Like, will the drama, will the stakes suffer? Like, it feels like it's sort of show where you need like a really outstanding villain, and like then maybe the casting really carried the first season, and the tension. Like, it was very intense at times. I think the pacing of that first season was really bang on, and it remains to be seen if they can recreate that. But I think what I'll do is I'll just sum up the main plot of this first episode and then talk a bit about it. So Pine is now going under Alex Goodwin in London. As we cut to the present day, he reports to Rex, but Alex manages surveillance unit called the Night Owls that they survey top London hotels looking for criminal activity. And it's one such operation when they're surveilling a poker game where Pine spots Jacko Brora, who's a mercenary who has worked for Roper in the past. So Pine recognises him. He alerts Rex. There's like this big 60th birthday party at Rex's house. And that's the scene where Rex tells him, you've got to stay out of this stuff. You've got to keep your head down. It's too risky. And at the same party, Pine notices Rex meeting with a mysterious woman. More on that later. Pine then places a surveillance on Giacomo, discovering his connections to criminal broker Adam Hollowell and MI6 chief Maya Cavendish. Well, what is he up to? Who's he working for? And there's this whole thing in the episode where there's like a planned shipment of drugs, but because of developments that doesn't quite go down as planned, because Pine and his teams are hoping to catch them in the act. But then Rex is murdered out of the blue not long after this, and this is made to look like a suicide initially, but Pine finds a hidden phone in Rex's house and uses it to contact Roxana Balares, a woman from the party who Rex was meeting with. So she's a businesswoman working with a Colombian philanthropist, Teddy De Santos. You can tell I'm reading this, folks, but he's a mole. So she's a mole for Rex. Sorry, it's getting a bit confusing. And Dos Santos is described throughout the episode as a disciple of Roper's. So they're almost giving him the big build-up and profile because he has this history following Roper and almost being groomed by him for his role. There's also like a link to the charity which Roper set up in the original show, so it was like a fake charity to almost make himself look good, but it was also as a disguise for his more shady operations. And this DeSantis character has a link to that. We see him appear as part of the charity's advertising, so that's quite a nice little callback as well to the original show. So later on, Pine takes Roxana into protective custody, believing she probably has relevant information, and he wants to know more about her meetings with Rex. And then he and a couple of his team members track Jacko to Spain, where he meets with Dos Santos in a hotel, but Dos Santos cottons on to Jacko has a bug planted on him. So he decides to kill him and two of Jonathan's team before detonating a bomb in an explosive end to the episode, which Pine barely survives, fleeing the hotel. A gunman storms Roxana's safe house in London, and there's another scene where she had previously sent a text, and they make it look in the episode that she's tipping off the criminals, so the shipment gets halted so they don't get caught in the act, but that's never really confirmed. It's just she sends a text, she finds an excuse to go to the bathroom, sends a text, and then you're not quite sure who she sent the text to. So they're definitely playing her character off as someone who could be dodgy, could really be working for the villains, but it's hard to tell. As far as we know, she's working for MI6. So that's pretty much the rundown of the episode. As I said, there's a lot of tie-ins to the original show. It's sort of funny, this kind of show having like, I don't want to say nostalgia, that sounds a bit too crash. I think I can see why they're doing it like this, because it's almost like you've got some natural like plot beats you can pick up and connect to the past. And I think maybe I just expected this sort of show where it would just be like another case for Jonathan Pine, and that would be series 2, but maybe they figured as well that it might be a bit hard for credibility. Then okay, he's still doing this stuff, and technically he is still doing, but he's doing it in a more low-key kind of way, a bit less risky, but of course that's not going to last. He's getting drawn into this, but so I can see why they're doing it the way they are. I think my worry and my big complaint with the episode is that it's almost highlighting too much, like, as I said, the ghost of Richard is like hanging over Jonathan Pine. He's hanging over the story, and Hugh Laurie is a really tough act to follow, and it remains to be seen if this new villain is really up to it so far. They're giving him the big build-up by keep referring to him as the disciple of Richard Roper, And I'll say the end of the episode is very tense, very exciting. It's like a good cliffhanger for the going into episode 2, and that was quite well done. The scene at the hotel and him just walking out and like the explosion, it was cool, but like whether it's just going to be moments like that which sort of paper over him maybe not being as compelling and charismatic to watch as Hugh Laurie's character, that could be a bit of a problem. And it's definitely a solid cast. Like India Ferreira is in it, and she's an actress who you see mostly in TV shows, British TV shows, but she's always very solid. Like she was in the first season of Luther. She has a small role in this episode. She just plays another person at the party who seems connected to MI6, and at one point he's talking to Jonathan, who's obviously under the name Alex now. But there's this whole thing, I think, a little bit where it's almost therapy for Jonathan / Alex, where he's still got trauma from all those years ago and is still dealing with this stuff because he has to check in with this team at one point, and he's being questioned by this woman. And it's one of the best scenes in the episode, actually. Hiddleston is very good. Like, he doesn't really skip a beat in this. Like, it's a little bit more of a downplayed, like, less charismatic Pine at the moment, but that will probably change. But it's like, that's a good scene where the woman's talking about at some point you'll explode. It's almost like you're bottling the past up, and you can see him shaking his hands. It's a good bit of direction, or clutching his hands that are shaking a bit. And he's got quite a cryptic sort of face where he's not really giving much away. And he's got this line about, I'm the man who doesn't explode, so trying to keep it all in once again, and just these questions piling in on him. It's definitely one of the best scenes in the episode, and there's a solid cast in this, like an actress called Hayley Squires, who was in a really good British drama, I, Daniel Blake, which came out about 9-10 years ago, something like this. I haven't really seen her in much since, but she plays, I think her name's Sally, one of Pine's team, who is kind of the one who has like the biggest involvement outside of Pine when it comes to like intel, and she's the one who's always giving him like the lowdown on things, and is almost his number two in some ways. She seems like the kind of knowledge person for these surveillance type missions, so she has a decent sized role, and it's nice to see her again. And it's definitely like a solid cast. It's probably just pales a bit in comparison with the first series and the casting then, and it just remains to be seen how good the villain is and how compelling the plot is overall. And I think if there is a main complaint, apart from the fact that there's a lot going on and it maybe needs to settle down, is I think maybe they are just trying to connect it a bit too much to the other series and all these different things. There's also a scene where Jonathan / Alex / was it Keith? Michael? He had another identity when he went to the school, but he goes to the school of Danny, who was Richard Roper's son, and because of the whole thing, Danny doesn't know what happened to his father. And it's revealed that he knows who this is. He remembers him. And the reason he's gone there is for the operation, really, because he suspects then the other, like the drug pin guy, De Santos, has contacted him in some ways. So he thinks he might have information, and Danny isn't very forthcoming. Like, he blames Jonathan for what happened with his father. So why should I give you information? So that's another character who they've brought back, and another link to the first series that I probably didn't expect. But again, it's not a bad scene. Like, it's quite a dramatic scene, and as Jonathan is leaving, Danny says, "I'll see you in another 10 years." And it's at that point that Jonathan turns around and he's like, "Okay, I've got to tell you something." And he tells him about what happened to his dad, like how he was killed, and the details. And it feels like a genuine moment from him. Like, it's almost like he was involved, and Danny was a big part of that. Like, he was in a way protecting Danny, and in his eyes, from like his father, because there was the whole thing, again, spoilers for series 1, where he got involved with the Elizabeth Debicki character, another cast member who I'm not sure is returning or not. I don't think so. I don't think she's on the cast list, but I wondered if they might bring her back, but it doesn't seem so far, unless it's just a small cameo. So there is like a personal connection to Danny, the son, and you can see that Pine feels bad in the scene. So it was quite a well done scene, that, even though, again, it's another example of all these different ties to like the past. Also, the Roxana character, I think, has a lot of potential. It's a shame we didn't see a bit more of her in the first episode, but she was quite a hard character to read, and the actress, I think, brought a decent amount of personality in the short scenes that we got from her. Like, she definitely seemed quite feisty and independent. So as I said, there's nothing really that wrong with the cast and the characters we've got. I think it's just whether the plot is going to end up being like as compelling or as intriguing as the original series, and whether you're going to lose some of the star power and it's going to suffer. And it does feel like it's juggling quite a lot at the moment, but not a bad comeback episode. I'm almost expecting it not to be as good as the first series, to be honest, but you know, I hope for a decent sequel series. It's got some of the same creative people involved. So that is my thoughts on the Night Manager episode 1 of season 2, the comeback series. Let me know what you guys think of it in the comment below if you've watched it. Just to let you know about the release of this, because it is coming out on the BBC first, or at least the early episodes. So episodes 1 and 2 are up on BBC iPlayer now, and then it's coming out weekly on BBC. And then on the 11th of January, so next week, it is coming to Amazon Prime. So it's kind of like a split release between BBC and Amazon Prime. But I will continue. I probably plan on doing episode 2 tomorrow. But that is the Night Manager. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like and subscribe. You can support me on patreon.com/borednow for some extras, and also as a channel membership. And don't forget to hype up this video. You can hit the hype button and help me get out to more eyes. But thanks for listening, guys. Hope you're having a good new year. More reviews soon. See you later.
There'll be no record of death. Richard Roper will remain a missing person. And you, Jonathan Pine, will be no more.
I spent years creating you anew. It's time you get back in the field.
That's him. Teddy Dos Santos.
Teddy is smuggling arms into Colombia.
Calls himself Richard Roper's through the cycle.
And I think British intelligence is helping him.
That's your chance to be a snake in their garden.
Welcome to Colombia.
You want to talk first, or shall I?
Why don't you?
You have a choice to make, Roxana.
I get you what you want.
I was never here.
Roxy tells me that you're looking for investment opportunities. You ask no questions of me, and I ask no questions of you. Everything's trust.
You know the real problem with human beings? We're genetically dishonest. He lied to me.
I had no choice. I saw a chance to nail the London investors, the politicians, the whole rotten bunch.
He's watching this.
I have a bad record with people I get close to.
Where's Jonathan Pine?
Who are you? You have no idea who I really am.